Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Continuing the work on my game mat. Going to work on some of the roads here. I've taken the stencil from last time and I've laid it back down. I actually laid it down at the end of the last stream. So I'm just going to go through it real quick and make sure that all of the lines of tape are all the way pushed down on the vinyl here. So we don't want to... Some little bumps and stuff in the tape are not a big problem, but we don't want too many. So I'm just pushing all these down, making sure we have some nice crisp lines. All right. And then we're going to go in and we're going to use our same color we used last time, which is the, get it in camera here, Splintered Bone from Reaper. And again, with the same thing from last time, I'm just going to use some pluck foam that I pulled out. And I'm just going to tap it in the paint and then just start tapping it on to these lines in the tape here. This is to give the lines some texture, since they would be unequally weathered and they might even not have been painted on 100% evenly. So this will just give some sort of texture to it. You could, if you didn't want to go through the hassle of doing this, you could just spray them on with a rattle can or an airbrush, and it wouldn't be that big a deal. No one's probably going to be caring about the texture of my lane lines, but I haven't used the sponge on technique very much, so I thought I'd use it just as much for the looks as just for the practice also. So I'm just going to dot these on. I'm going to be a little less consistent than on the other one, just for fun, just to maybe these lane lines got beat up a little bit more than the other ones. Get all the way out here. You just want to make sure that there's not a too consistent of a pattern in anything that you're doing. Because you don't want to see sponge marks in your lane lines, because that wouldn't make sense. I don't think they go around sponging on their lane lines in real life. Just gonna tap all these on. Now I'll pick the template up and move it to our third road, our third A road. And then we'll go on from there. Alright, there's all the between the lanes markers. Just gonna do the sidelines now. And when I'm doing this, I'm not only just tapping up and down like this, I'm also sometimes tapping and dragging or swiping across the lane line, just so there's some varied texture going down the whole thing. You don't want a consistent pattern when you're going for a weathered look like this. It can be sometimes hard to see exactly what it's going to look like because of all the paint around it on the tape, but once you pull your pattern off, if it's not looking good or you don't like the way it looks anyway, you can always go back in with a brush and just be careful and touch it up a little bit. We'll also do some weathering passes on the whole board anyway, so those might get corrected with that anyway. Alright. And we just have the other side here. I'm not going to go all the way to the end because I'm going to be not cutting out, but I'm going to be painting over the circle in the middle here anyway. So I don't don't need my lane lines to go all the way. Almost done. And then we can pull the tape up and get the reveal, which is the best part of doing tape jobs like this, is the reveal at the end. Alright, that looks about good. Like I said, I'm not going all the way to the end on that side. So I will go ahead and pull it up now. I'm going to take these two, just like last time, I'm going to take these two outside pieces of tape off first, because they make the pattern annoying to pull up. Just going to toss these. And get the other one. Ooh. Excellent. And then the pattern itself. So you just want to be careful if you're reusing the pattern like I am. You just want to be careful not to disconnect any parts of your pattern as you pull it up. Alright, go around the other side here. Alright. So there's that pulled up. I'm going to go ahead and scoot the camera over for our next one. We're going to put our next one right here, following the pattern, which is right there, that we drew up last time. So we're going to put this last A road in here. That looks good. So I'm just going to try to line it up as best as possible with the center here. Let's see, where's our line? That looks about good. So then you just want to stick your pattern back down, making sure that all your lines of tape are stuck down evenly. There we go. Wonderful. Alright, so then we're just going to do the same thing. Let me just put in my side lane lines here. The first one in about there. That looks good. And the next one in. Scoop that over. You just want to make sure that they're relatively uniform, but they don't have to be perfect. Alright, then we're just going to do the same thing again. Get some more of this splintered bone color. Dump it down on the palette. Find wherever you chucked your... Oh, here it is. Get your sponge. And we're just going to go to town. So I'm not going to go too much farther than right about here, because I know I'm going to paint over this circle in the middle here to make these line up. But I'm just going to tap these in just in case. And I think after this, just to get a break from doing roads, I'm going to put in some sidewalks. And then maybe we'll come back to some A roads, or some B roads maybe, since this is the last A road. Okay. Just tap it in, give it a little tappity tap tap taparoo. Yep, that's it. Just gotta make the paint go to its home. That's all you gotta do. It wants to go to its home. You just have to get it there. Almost done with this last road here. Could also do this with a much larger piece of foam, probably. Get the same texture, but more at a time. I just wanted to do it this way, though, because I wasn't exactly sure what I'm doing here. So this was really just a practice. Get a little more paint. And really, a game mat is a great place to experiment with things, because at the end of the day, it is just the surface you're playing on. It's not like the centerpiece of your army. So experimentation on this can translate to better results on the actual army. A lot of the skills obviously won't translate because most of your models aren't 2D, but you never know. Trying to eliminate some of the patterning in some of these. That looks good. Alright, I'm going to pull the tape off again. I'm going to pull it off from this direction. Pull off these side lanes first. There we go. And then the main part of the pattern, again making sure that you don't disconnect any pieces like that. 10 out of 10. See, I was showing you what not to do. Don't do what I just did. Alright, so then our mat is a little funky, so I'm just gonna spread it back out. Wonderful. Alrighty. So then, if we take a look at the pattern, right there, you can see we drew in some sidewalks for these. So I think I'm going to go ahead and put those in. I'll put them in on this one over here, since this is the driest paint that we did last week. So I'll go ahead and do that. Let's get a better angle here. That's better. Alright. Alrighty. So I'm going to do the same thing, basically. Leaving my tape on the wrong side of the table, as per usual. Okay. So I'm just going to... First, I'm going to put tape covering our white paint that we have here. Or our splintered bone, rather. Yep, that works. So I'm just going to cover this line that we have. Wonderful. Just like that. And then I'm just going to estimate a sidewalk width. Probably estimate it wrong, but that's okay. I'll go about half a... I'll get not long enough a piece of tape. That's what I'll get. Try this again. There we go. Maybe that wide. Sure. All right. So then, let me just cover this last this bit right here. Perfect. So we're going to take some gray. I'm going to start with Mechanicus Standard Gray. And I'm going to tap that in with a decently messed up brush. Same sort of idea, just tapping it down like this. Doesn't have to be perfectly even coating, just so we get the gray down. The black undercoat of this vinyl is going to help quite a bit with this, because then we just have a nice black, dark black undertone under it. If you were using something else, you could just paint it black first. Spray paint seems to work pretty well on almost any surface. I made a bunch of game mats for the store, and they were made of just like craft store fabric, and we spray painted the heck out of them, and they were just fine. So, alright, make sure that's all tapped down. That looks good. Then I'm going to come in with a lighter gray, in this case Administratum Gray, and I'm going to sort of wipe about as much paint off as you normally would if you were doing a dry brush. Maybe. If there's any paint left in my pot here. There we go. So just wiping most of it off. Then I'm just going to come back and stipple it back onto the darker gray here. There we go. That looks good. So then we have to figure out, maybe give it a couple swipes in a couple places. So then we have to figure out how to do the paving lines, paver lines on the sidewalks. And I've never done this before. It's going to be an experiment. We're going to see how it goes. So I'm just going to take two rulers, put one down, put then the other one down, square it up to it, and then, actually I'm going to do it upside down so I don't ruin my ruler. And then I'm just going to paint. I'm actually not going to use this ruler because it's a clear ruler. I'm going to use a piece of tape and this ruler. I'm just going to move the piece of tape every time. I'm going to paint in these lines. I'm going to use Corvus black for this. It's black but not too black. I have no idea if this is going to work. You might be able to just paint the lines on without any aid for all I know. And that might be a better alternative, to be honest, but let's do, yep, that's going to be a better alternative. I'm just going to use this ruler as a guide, and I'm just going to paint along the edge here. It's going to work out better, I think. I'm not being super precise with where they go exactly. Part 2 of Greg's personalized Twilight script will be done shortly. Sweet. Can't wait. Probably honestly could do this with a Sharpie. just paint some lines, or draw some lines. I mean, using a straight edge, but my show isn't called Straight from the Pen, it's called Straight from the Pot, so we're using pots of paint. Even though the white came out of a dropper bottle, but that's not the point. So I'm just lining the pavers here. Let's see if I can get a better shot of this. There we go. So I'm just moving the ruler down, putting a line, moving the ruler, putting a line, so on and so forth. I'm trying to start my line off the mat on the tape, just because wherever you put your brush down is going to be a bigger glob of paint than the rest of the line, so hopefully help eliminate that. Okay, let's come around here. Almost done with this part. Coming up to the end here, or to the part I started earlier. Just do one like that. It's a little big. Just do that. It's okay if some are bigger, some are smaller. Not a huge problem. Okay, almost done. And I think I'm gonna do some weathering on the roads here. Last one. Wonderful. Alrighty. So there's those lines put down. Straight from the felt tip, yeah, exactly. That'll be my next series once I get bored of painting. Alrighty. And while this technically isn't really that complicated of a template we have here for this sidewalk, I am going to save this tape, because that way our sidewalks will be a consistent thickness. Just going to pull this off. Wonderful. Just going to throw out this excess tape. Pop our template over with the road template. And then, let's see here. I think I'll do some weathering on the roads. So I'm going to take the camera here. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. We're going to... nope, change my mind. Don't want to do that right now. That's messy. I'll prepare for that next stream. We'll do it then. It's going to use some weathering powder on the roads. We'll do that next week. For now, I'm just going to put some Let's put some cracks and stuff on this road. Because roads would be quite cracked, especially with tanks and stuff driving on them. So I'm just going to zoom in quite close here so you can see what I'm doing. And the key here is to get your cracks to overlap the white parts of the lane lines as well as the road itself. So I am going to, I'll just start here, and I'm just going to draw, hopefully this is on camera, perfect, all right. Just going to start drawing a little squiggly crack through here. I'm using Corvus Black still for this. Just kind of sneak it out, do some little spider webs coming off of it. Alright. And then just kind of do this all over basically. Let's see. We'll do this section next. Just kind of spider web them out from each other so they don't look too regular. There we go. You don't want to put too many in one spot, so I will spread these out across the whole surface of the road. So then if we zoom out a little bit, you can see that it starts to look like the road surface is a little bit beat up. Some can be thicker than others. Some can be thinner than others. I'm sort of stippling with the side of my brush to get the outline of the crack, and then coming in and filling it in afterward, just so they're not too regular. Do a really long one in some place, like fault line sort of thing. Like that. Zoom in down here. There you go. Just going to do a couple more, and then I'll move on to the next step of these, which is going to be to put a lighter color on here. Basically, if you've ever painted battle damage on armor, we're going to basically do the same sort of thing here. You put your dark color down to signify the hole or the damage or the crack or whatever it is, and then just on the edges you put very lightly a lighter color, showing the edges of the damage of worn, basically, since they would now be an exposed edge. They would wear differently than just that. Alright, so that's good for now. I'll come in and put a bunch on off stream just so we don't have to sit and watch this for an hour. So I'm going to go back to my light gray again. The Administratum gray. And let's see here. There we go. So let me zoom in. I'll do this big one because it'll be interesting. So just along the edges here, just going to put a very thin line of this Administratum gray. Realized I zoomed in and then probably immediately blocked it completely with my hand. So let's do it this way. Let's go on this one. That looks good. And then I'll come from the other side so you can actually see it. So not on the whole thing, just on some pieces of it. I'm just going to put a very faint line of this lighter gray, just to show that the edges of this crack are wearing it more than the road around it as things bump into it or whatever. There you go. So basically we would just then do that across all the cracks on our road, and then we'd be done. That's a lot of cracks that need to be done though. So I'm going to move on to a different something, just so that you guys aren't sitting and watching me paint cracks all night. So I think I'm just going to do some weathering on the road with just some normal paint. I'm going to use some, was a Steel Legion Drab? Yep, Steel Legion Drab. And I'm going to do this sort of like a dry brush stipple sort of thing. I'm going to do this off behind the sidewalk here. That looks good. Most of it's off. So just up here. So I'm just going to look at my plan over here, and I'm just going to sort of weather and tap and stuff around where this building is, or about where this building will be, just to give some more, because, you know, there's dirt that floats around in a city. All sorts of dirt. So let's see if that's, yeah, it's showing up. And then once I've tapped in a bunch, because I don't want the same pattern, I'm just going to come in and mess it up like this. You can mess it up with your hand. One thing I should say, I've left this mat on my table this whole last week. I'm going to put some on the sidewalks also. I've left this mat on my table this whole last week because anything that happens to get on it is just more weathering. So more weathering is always better. Get some of this on the road. So we just want to do this basically all over. But I'm going to, I think I'm going to lay down a couple tufts just for fun. I'm going to lay down some of these. And so this is really the main impetus for this project, was wanting to see how tufts would behave on a rolled up mat. I think they'll do fine when they're super glued down, but we're going to see. So I'm just going to put a couple on the edge of this sidewalk here, just super gluing them down. I'm going to put some around in a couple places. These are quite scraggly, these tufts. They're not as uniform. Let me zoom in. You guys can see a little better. But I think they'll be good for this kind of thing. Just for some little bushes. Because this is where, if we look at the plan again, right there. The section of the board we're on right now is this building right here. So that's a busted up, broken down building. So a couple little bits of grass growing here and there. I think we'll do that building some good. And I just wanted an excuse to use some tufts. Alright. So there we go. That's all. Those are all glued down. I'm just going to do a couple right now because I want to see how they behave when I mess with the mat and roll up the mat and all this stuff. So let's see what is the next thing I want to do. I don't really want to just keep doing sidewalks or keep doing road cracks because it's not the most exciting thing to watch. Am I prepared for that next step? Nope. Alright, well, I'm not prepared for the next step I was going to do. So I'm just going to fill in the other sidewalk here on the other side of this road. Do this other sidewalk here, right along there, and then I'll call it a day. That'll be good progress. And I think I've decided that I'm going to, these streams, I'm just basically going to show new things on them. So, that's good. So I'm going to, over the week, I'm going to work on some more roads and some more sidewalks, some more road cracks and all that. And then next week on the stream will just be stuff that you guys haven't seen done yet. So that keeping you guys interested. So I'm not sure how many people would really want to tune into. Oh, look, this is week 3 of Greg painting road lines. Yeah. So that looks about right. Okay. That looks good. Just going to tape this off here. Wonderful. And tape it off down here. Excellent. Alright. So then we're going to go back to our Mechanicus Standard Gray. And the brush. There we go. And then just going to lay this sidewalk down. Like I said on the last sidewalk, don't have to be super even. We have this black base coat underneath, so any unevenness will just look like dirt or something. Some form of weathering. So I'm going to go back to the Corvus Black again. Find my ruler. And just for funsies, I'm going to line my ruler up with the pavers on the other side of the road. And I'll just draw them in as such. Do this way so I know my separation is correct here. gray is still a little wet, but I'm not super worried about it. I'm gonna switch to up here. It's easier to move to the left looking at the ruler like this. I guess we should probably put the put some cracks in the pavement of these also. I'll have to come back and do that in just a second here. Okay, our tufts are getting in the way of our ruler now. Maybe I should have thought this through a little bit better. That's okay. I guess I should say also, the tufts I'm using here are tufts that Janet and I have designed and made. And if you'd like to be a guinea pig and have some free tufts sent to you so you can test them out for us, feel free to send me a message and I will happily get some out to you. Just trying to get as many people as possible to have eyes on them so you can be like, hey Greg, these tufts fell apart in a week, they're terrible. Or, hey Janet, there's too much glue on these tufts, they're making my bases look like crap, or stuff like that. Or preferably, we'll get things like, these tufts are awesome, how are they so cheap, blah blah blah, you know, stuff like that. So if you want a beta, alpha, pre-alpha, if you want to test these tufts, just let me know and I'll get you some. These are, I decided to start with some that are sort of wild and crazy and almost bush-like, just because most tufts you see, at least that I see on the market, are pretty uniform. You know, bristles all the same length, which is, they look fine. I use them all the time. They're great, but why not have some variety also? So these, let's zoom in on these real quick. As you can see, they're a little more wild and crazy. Their bristles are sort of going every which way. They're a little bit taller also than a normal tuft. So yeah, just get my plug in there of my hoped soon to be my own product. And alright, so what's next? Next, I think I'm gonna do the weathering on these stones really quick. And I'm just gonna use this light gray that we used before. Just to mix it up though, I'm using a smaller brush. I'm just gonna tap in some places here. Just go up and down like this. And give some others some love here. They're a little too pronounced. That's okay. Do that for a minute and they'll be all good to go. Alright. So I think I'm just going to rip those tape lines up. I just realized I kept my template for my sidewalk and then I put a new template down. Whatever. Just going to pull these off. And there you go. There's a more or less completed road section with our sidewalks laid out. Got some tufts and some dirt over here. Got all sorts of stuff going on here. We got some cracks in the road from where maybe some Lehman Russes rolled down this road and they exceeded the weight limit. But, you know, I think the Imperial engineers will let it go when it was break the road or break the demon incursion. So there you go. So that's our road. I think next time I'm going to do the circle. Oh, get Chad out of the way here. Next time I'm going to do the circle in the middle. I'm going to use a dinner plate for that. I think on day one I talked about rating your kitchen, but then I never did. But anyway, I'm going to use a dinner plate and do that circle. Then I think, looking at the plan here, I think I'm probably going to do the B and C road up in this quadrant just to show. I'll do the circle and then I'll show a curvy road, and I'll do the small road. And then I think we might actually try to finish this whole quadrant next week, do all the tufts and the weathering and stuff around those, where those buildings are going to go. But yeah, that's it for this episode. Ooh, Elmer's Glue. Sponsored, not sponsored. Maybe they will now. Let me know, Elmer's. So yeah, that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Hopefully I will see you next Monday for some Warhammer miniature something. Wednesday for some D&D easy mode stuff. And then back here on Friday for more of this. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and I will see you next time.